What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Travis from AmericanTrucks.com. Today we're checking out some very cool running boards from Barricade. These are their Pioneer aluminum running boards, fitting your 2009 to 2018 quad cab and crew cab Ram 1500. These guys currently come in at around the $220 price point, which currently makes them one of the least expensive aluminum side steps or running boards that you can throw on your truck. Now, why is that important? Well, obviously aluminum is excellent compared to steel as far as weather and corrosion and rust are concerned. So if you live in a place where you see a lot of snow, rain, you see a lot of road salt, or maybe you take your truck off road all the time, or you have a work site, or whatever else. At any rate, if you get a lot of atmospheric conditions, you won't have to worry about this step in particular ever corroding or rusting out on you, or really ever actually not looking good for that matter. The entire step itself is made out of aluminum, and there's a really nice kind of ceramic silver finish on top, and then even this little middle piece here, this little accent piece, is also brushed aluminum. And then the way the step actually secures to the truck is pretty nice too. The brackets themselves are made out of steel. Obviously they're not aluminum, probably wouldn't be able to hold up to the task, but they are about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch thick, and they actually do have a powder coat on top of them. Powder coat's really nice because it's actually baked onto the bare steel. It's not just a painted finish. So safe to say that this entire step is well insulated from things like rust and corrosion. It's also one of the widest running boards that you can currently pick up. The actual step pad itself measures just over 4 inches in width, and then the overall width of the entire step, including this little bevel right here, comes out to about 5.5 inches. So you're getting plenty of real estate to actually get your foot on there. That's nice if you got big boots or something like that. And then the last thing to consider is the install. There are a lot of different options available on the site, and they all mount to the truck in different ways. These are really cool because they're a total bolt-on kit, and they actually use a really cool double bracket system that I'll show you guys in a little bit. That double bracket system actually mounts this step to the rocker panel as well as the pinch seam. That's really nice because it makes them a lot more rigid, allows them to take a lot more weight. That's cool if you got a lot of family and friends. You don't have to worry about people flexing these things out, and you don't have to worry about them sagging over time or anything like that. Now, how easy is it to actually get them installed? Well, like I said, because these are bolt-on steps, it shouldn't take you more than an hour or two at most. So for that reason, I'm gonna go ahead and give the install a very simple 1 out of 3 wrenches on the old difficulty meter. This is definitely something that you can tackle at home, even if you don't have a lot of experience, or maybe this is your first mod for your truck. So again, if you want one of the most affordable aluminum side steps / running boards for your Ram 1500, you want something that's got plenty of area to make it getting it in and out of the cab as easy as possible, then Barricade's done a great job with these Pioneer running boards. And if you decide to stick with these guys over any of the other steps or running boards, come back in a little bit. I'm gonna show you all the tools you need to dig out of the toolbox, and then I'll walk you through the entire install step by step. All right, guys, before we get started, you'll need a standard drive ratchet, as well as a 10mm socket. That can be shallow or deep, but you'll need a 13mm deep socket, and you'll also need a 10 and 13mm wrench. It's helpful to have a ratcheting wrench for your 10mm if possible, and obviously you can use an impact gun with a swivel socket to make everything go quicker. All right, once you have all your tools out of the box and the kit is unboxed as well, the first thing you need to do is grab one of these bolt and nut plates. The bolt and nut plate is going to secure the primary bracket at each mounting location, and the secondary bracket's going to go on the pinch seam right here, but we'll worry about that later. What you need to do is get this bolt and nut plate inside the rocker panel. How do you go about that? Pretty simple. You're going to grab one of the hex bolts in the kit, you're going to thread it into the other end of the bolt and nut plate. You're going to use this as kind of a little lever, if you will. You're going to fish it into the rocker panel like so, and get one of those studs to pop out. Now you want to keep a hold on that stud, you don't want it to fall in. Grab one of these plastic retainers, thread it on until it's flush. That's going to keep the bolt and nut plate in place so that we can install our first bracket. Once you have this little washer in place, go ahead and remove your bolt. Okay, so now you're going to grab your front bracket. They are labeled, by the way. They have kind of a little electro pencil marking on the inside. It says DF for driver front. Go ahead and throw the bracket in place. Make sure that the nut on the bolt plate's lined up with the other hole, and go ahead and thread your hex bolt in there with a flat washer and a crush washer. We're only hand tightening this stuff because we want a little bit of side-to-side adjustment. That way we can make sure we get all 3 brackets to line up for the step itself. Once you have your hex bolt in place, you want to throw a flat washer, crush washer, and an appropriately sized nut on the stud of the bolt plate itself. All right, next we're going to install our support bracket. You want to make sure that the tongue of it faces in towards the truck and rests flush against the primary bracket. These are really nice because these are what keep the steps really stiff, and it keeps them from flexing. So go ahead and grab the smaller bolts in the kit with 2 flat washers. Go ahead and get a bolt on one side, get another flat washer on there, You're going to be using the nylon locking nuts in the kit. You do not want to use crush washers and the regular nuts in the kit for these. And again, we're just hand tightening this hardware. We'll zip everything down once we get our step in place. Okay, next we're going to secure the secondary bracket to the primary bracket using one of the larger bolts in the kit. And again, you'll need 2 flat washers, and you're going to be using the nylon locking nuts for this as well. Again, do not use the regular size nuts with the crush washers. And leave this hand tight. All right, so our first bracket is set up, and honestly, it's the same process for the other 5. All you have to do is keep in mind that for the rear brackets, they're going to be configured in the exact opposite direction of what the middle and front brackets are on their respective sides. So go ahead and get one of your bolt and nut plates in place, again, using one of these little washers to retain it, and then grab your hardware to secure your primary bracket and your secondary bracket. Now, as you can see, sometimes the bolt and nut plate doesn't like to stay lined up once you let go of it. But if you keep a little tension on the threads using the bracket itself, it should stay in place. So you can line up that bolt and get it in there. So we're at the rear here, we got our primary bracket in place. Now we're going to install our secondary bracket for the rear. And unfortunately in the kit, the secondary brackets for the rears are actually mislabeled for the opposite side. So the driver's side is going to need one that's marked passenger and vice versa. But we are using the same hardware otherwise. All right guys, once you got all the brackets in place, go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back because that's honestly the hardest part of this install. Now we get to the fun part, throwing our step in place. It's very simple. You have these weird little T-bolts provided in the kit. They actually have a cool little purpose. You see these channels here on the bottom of our step. You're gonna grab one of the T-bolts. There's actually a little opening up here. You're just gonna slide them in like so. You want 2 of these little studs for each of the brackets, so 6 in total for either step. Once you got a couple of these in there, you can go ahead and throw the step up onto the brackets. We'll get all the studs lined up with the holes, then we'll finish tightening everything down. And that should be it for us today. All right, once you have the studs lined up with the holes inside the bracket and you're happy with where the step is sitting, go ahead and grab the remaining small flat washers and crush washers in the kit. And this is where you're gonna be using those small nuts that are not locking nuts. Let's go ahead and get all that hardware hand tightened, and then we're gonna drive everything home in just a little bit. All right, once you have that hardware hand tightened on the studs, you can drive everything home. You'll need a 10mm socket for this. Now, if you're running into some clearance issues with the bracket and trying to get your socket in there, you can use a ratcheting wrench to finish these off. All right, ladies and gentlemen, once you get to the rear here, you might run into a little snafu. Sometimes the bolts will actually line up on the rear bracket where this little opening is in the channel for the step itself. If that happens, you can make some adjustments to the brackets and you can slightly adjust the step itself either to the front or the back to try and get this bolt seated inside the channel there. Just something to keep in mind. All right, guys, we are happy with where our step is sitting. We tightened it down. It's nice and flush, up and down, left to right, all that jazz. Now we're going to tighten down our primary brackets. You want to tighten these down first because that's going to keep everything seated nice and rigid. Then once you tighten down the hardware on the secondary bracket, that's going to apply tension to it. That's what's going to keep everything nice and stiff on here. Now to tighten down these bolts and nuts, you'll need a 13mm deep socket. And if you're using an impact gun like me, you'll need an impact swivel socket for clearance. All right, next we're going to tighten down this larger bolt here while we already have our 13mm stuff out. You'll also need a 13mm wrench for this. Okay, next we're going to tighten down this small hardware here. You'll need a 10mm wrench and a 10mm socket. All right, guys, our first bracket is all buttoned up, and again, it's the same process for the remaining brackets. Just tighten everything down, doing the primary brackets first, followed by the secondary brackets. All right, once you have the brackets underneath bolted down, go ahead and crawl out. Double check the running board again, make sure it's still sitting where you're happy with it, and that'll wrap up this very easy install. That also wraps up my review of the Barricade Pioneer aluminum running boards fitting your 2009 to 2018 quad cab and crew cab Ram 1500. And for all things Ram, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.